Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to look at how you don't necessarily need to run more in order to run faster. So ultimately this comes down to the context of the journey that you're on so far. If you've been making progress, if you're moving forward, then what's the sudden need to do more to get better gains? If the gain you've made has been quite small, absolutely you probably could benefit from running more or doing some other sort of training, which we'll come on to in a moment. But you don't necessarily need to always just run more and more and more, because there is a limit to how much benefit there's going to be from that, how much time you have available, and also what your body's going to tolerate. What I often suggest to people, especially if they are really, really time limited, is that we actually work on running quicker. We want just those few seconds a mile faster, take things on 5 to 10 seconds a mile during their training block, and that's the main change they make. I've seen this work with people taking them down from sort of 3:45 marathon around 3:30s or low 3:30s several times, where family life, work commitments have meant that really we can't crank in another mile on each of their midweek runs. What we can do is just up the intensity just that touch, being more reflective of their current paces and where they're trying to aim for. The other side as well is not necessarily just changing up the individual paces of, say, marathon pace or half marathon pace, but instead going with more miles at that pace. So essentially increasing the ratio of harder miles and working miles in their training. Another really easy way that takes no extra time, but does have a really, really big benefit and gives us control of injury risks. Because if we set out to run, say, 4 to 5 miles at marathon pace instead of 3 to 4, then we've got the option of always stopping at 4 and going, actually, I will cool down if something's feeling particularly tired, if it's windy, if it's hot. It gives flexibility whilst we're still within that kind of sense of parameter, but also still being productive. Now, there's other things you can do as well. As you probably know, if you've seen my videos before, you know I'm a big advocate of working on nutrition, mobility, recovery, and also on strength. So you do not necessarily need to just become quicker or run more. You can do these things. You can gain speed over your different race distances, particularly half marathon and marathon, where there's time for that to really show itself through strength training, through working on better nutrition, both kind of training nutrition, but also mid run nutrition and mid race nutrition in particular, nutrition, hydration, and your recovery strategies. So sleeping better, working on the quality of your sleep, sleeping more, and looking after like foam rolling, active recovery, stretching, heat treatments and things like that. There's loads of things you can do to get faster. Work on balance and coordination. Stand on one foot when you're cleaning your teeth. When you're in a queue, just stand up a little tiptoe. It doesn't need to be kind of really obvious like you're doing something out of Karate Kid. It doesn't have to look silly. But there are loads of little things you can do which can be done in front of the TV quite passively, or can be, quite active, quite hard, quite challenging. Even changing the timing of your training so that you do strength work immediately after an easier run, for instance. It's not diminishing the quality of the strength work, but it will mean that you have to work a bit harder to do the same amount of work. That will increase your endurance, which means you'll run longer, better. Your muscles will be able to take that fatigue because they're used to working when they're fatigued. So there are loads and loads of things you can do. You don't necessarily have to run more in order to run faster in the long term. Look at the structure of your training, look at the number of marathon pace miles or the intensity relatively of that training, or just notice those pace on a few extra seconds and you'll be surprised what you can do. I've done this in my own training several times, actually haven't really increased the amount of training I've done for a while now, but I've still seen incremental improvements across different distances. Obviously, there will be injuries and things will crop up, so you need to sometimes readjust for those, but you can see lots of incremental gains again and again and again just with these small tweaks. Don't always run harder, don't always run more, just look at your whole training and improve where you can.